Hi there, Modern Britlet. I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about two poems. The Blake poems are already kind of explicated in the PowerPoint that I gave you, but I wanted to talk to you about a poem by John Keats and a poem by Percy Shelley. So before you watch this video, you need to have gone and looked at the website, the links that I provided that talks about the biographical details for both of the poets. It'll make a lot more sense if you have done that. And first, I want to look at In Drear Nighted December by John Keats. There's a link, so just go ahead and pull up that poem while I'm talking to you here. Keats is probably more famous for several of his other poems like La Belle Dame sans Merci or Ode on a Grecian Urn or Ode to a Nightingale. He had this kind of, I don't know if you've ever seen American Beauty, and I would recommend it, even though my husband says it's a really screwed up movie. But there's this kid in American Beauty who like videotapes everything because he finds it beautiful, and like he's like, do you want to see the prettiest video I've ever seen? And she's like, yeah. And it's a video of a paper bag or a plastic bag that's just being like floated around on the wind, and it was just absolutely blown away by the beauty of it in that moment. And in 1998 or whenever that movie came out, people were like, wow, like, that was like big brain moment. But John Keats is kind of similar to that, and that is a romantic impulse. The idea of looking at something small and beautiful that other people might take for granted and like finding something fascinating in it. Like just staring at this lighter for hours and looking at the ombre and the way that the blue flows into the yellow and the way it dances around. And if I were to really like study that and appreciate that flame, that would be a romantic impulse to notice the little things that other people don't. So that is what he's famous for a lot, is it's taking that kind of nib-specific focus, as one of my other favorite poets says, and applying it to the world around him. But I have a soft spot for this poem that I gave to you. I also try to pick stuff that's a little shorter for you in consideration of your time. But this poem is kind of like Surprised by Joy, and kind of like Kubla Khan is about memory, but comes at it from a totally different angle. So I will read it for you. You can skip through if you don't want to hear my redneck voice reading this poem. In drear nighted December, too happy, happy tree, thy branches ne'er remember their green felicity. The north cannot undo them with a sleety whistle through them, nor frozen thawings glue them from budding at the prime. Now, it's not often that you hear somebody say too happy. Happy is something that we want as much of as possible. So the concept of something being too happy right off the bat is a little bit strange. And there's kind of a bitterness to it. Like if somebody says like, I just can't stand Felicia, she's too happy. She is just like too positive, all up in my face with them scriptures. I just want to eat my donut and be left alone. That's usually coming from, and I mean, I am that person. That's usually coming from a place of bitterness or negativity. Like I don't need all that positivity in my face today. So we can already tell that the speaker, and you should never assume that the speaker is the poet, but with the romantics, you can pretty well assume that the speaker is the poet, unless there's some kind of very specific story that's being told. But it's a fair assumption in this one. So John Keats he's a little bitter. So he's mad at this inanimate object, this tree, and he says the tree is too happy. Why is the tree happy? Because the tree can't remember what it was like to be green. Nothing can hurt this tree. Nothing can make this tree sad. Whereas normally if the tree remembered and was like, I remember what summer was like, and I remember when I had leaves. You know, that's how I feel right now. I'm officially over winter. I'm done with it right now. As much as people complain about Tennessee summer all the time, but I would kill to have that right now. So he says the tree can't do that. He can't sit there and mope about how, bare his branches are, because he doesn't remember. He doesn't have memories. He lives in the moment. The tree is only in the now forever, just enjoying things as they are. Can't compare it to anything else because he doesn't remember. So because of that, the tree is too happy, and John Keats resents it for some reason. The next stanza, in drear nighted December, too happy, happy brook, thy bubblings ne'er remember Apollo's summer look, but with a sweet forgetting they stay their crystal fretting, never, never petting about the frozen time. So the same thing. Lovely rhyme scheme here, by the way. Really nice vocabulary, really lovely flow. But yeah, same thing. This little stream that's frozen now for the most part doesn't remember what it was like to be bathed in sunlight and to have a nice flowing water going around. They don't worry about it. It doesn't bother the brook because the brook doesn't have memories of better times to compare it to. So you can see where this is going. Ah! Exclamation mark. Now, I told you before that in a romantic poem, whenever there's an exclamation mark, we've got some kind of a big transition coming. Would 'twere so with many a gentle girl and boy. Would 'twere so is a way of saying, I wish it was that way. I wish it was like that with boys and girls. I wish it was like that with men and women. But were there ever any writhed not of passed joy? To writhe is to like do this and be like uncomfortable. Is there anybody on this earth who hasn't been made uncomfortable and sad by the loss of joy that they once had, but that is now gone? And that's a rhetorical question. To Keats, the answer is no. The feel of not to feel it, when there is none to heal it, nor numbed sense to steal it, was never said in rhyme. So the feel of not to feel it, oblivion, forgetfulness, when there's nothing to help, there's nothing to make you stronger against it, was never said in rhyme. I can't possibly poem my way out of this problem, is what that last line means. Nobody has ever given advice for how to fix this problem. And what is his problem? So his issue is he's mad at the inanimate natural objects around him because they don't have memories. But normally we think of happy memories as always being a source of good things and positivity. If you remember She Walks in Beauty, the cousin of Lord Byron held on to those happy memories of her dead husband, and they made her feel peaceful, a mind at peace with all below. And that's what made her so beautiful. So normally we think of that as sentimental and wonderful. Keats is saying, it's not that I have sad memories that I want to forget, it's that I have happy memories that I want to forget, because they are torturing me. And I wish I was that tree. I wish I was that rock. I wish I was that stream, and that I had nothing to compare my current life to, because nothing can fix my problem, nothing can make me stronger against it, and I don't know what to do. So, in particular, Keats's happy memories are of his secret fiancée, Fanny Brawne. And if you remember reading in the biographical information, and there's actually a movie about this I have never seen called Bright Star, but he was in love with Fanny Brawne, but they had to be engaged in secret because he, basically was not like a med school dropout per se, but like he was supposed to be an apothecary or a doctor, and he was like, I'm going to write poems. And that doesn't exactly make you like marriageable material back in the day or now. So they had to get engaged in secret, and at the same time, he has figured out basically that he is dying. His entire family, is stalked by tuberculosis. They called it the consumption back then. They were not exactly sure how to treat it or what to do with it. As you can see from the biographical stuff, they actually gave him terrible advice that made it worse. At one point, he coughed blood up onto his pillow, and he said, I know the color of that blood. That blood is my death sentence. Because from taking care of his brother, if I remember correctly. So he was starting to get a picture of what was happening to him. And he is deeply depressed because he is separated from his fiancée, who is the love of his life, and cannot see her because of the economic disparity and because of his probable impending death. And so he's writing this poem, most likely with the knowledge that he won't ever get to see her again. And these happy memories of her are stabbing him. And it's just an interesting concept because it's, there's a lot of poems about I wish I could get these memories back, or these memories sustain me. This one is I wish I could get these memories gone. I wish I could erase these memories and be like a rock or a limb or something that was not sentient. I would rather be that than be holding on to these torturous, blissful memories with the knowledge that I'm never going to get to experience this again. So bless his pea-picking heart. But Keats was extremely, as you read, extremely productive for the time that he had. He probably made more art in the very short amount of years that he had than, what was it, like 24? He died young, than most people ever do in like a life of 72 years or 78 years. So he made a huge, huge impact and was just a total like sweetheart, puffball, like darling, precious baby angel child, as opposed to Percy Shelley, who was a little bit more difficult. So switch over to Percy Shelley's Ozymandias, and I have a link to it here. It's also been posted. Ozymandias is, you may have even done this in high school. You may have done this one already because it is Percy Shelley's most famous poem by a long shot, and for good reason. It's one of the greatest poems ever written, TBH. Percy, interesting dude. I don't know if this was in the thing that I gave you, but I just always love this about him. Like, he didn't fit in at all in school. Like, he was very eccentric, and people started like beating him up and picking on him, and he kind of just decided to own it. And he was just like, all right, if you're going to make fun of me for being different, then I'm going to be really different and go all the way. And so he started really antagonizing people, and he was like, didn't believe in meat. He didn't believe in God. He didn't believe in monogamy. He didn't believe in the royals. Like, he was just an iconoclast. Like, any conventional feeling of the day he was opposed to. And people, if they tried to get into his dorm room without his permission, he was very smart, and he was good at science as well. He rigged up a system where his doorknob would send an electric shock to whoever was trying to open the door. And that is the kind of energy of petty that I do aspire to. I would have liked to have had that as a child. So he did marry Mary Shelley, and we'll be talking a lot more about Mary when we get into Frankenstein, which is actually what we're going to be doing next. So they were kind of a power couple. I feel kind of bad for her because, like, he, like, runs off with her. She's, like, 16, and, like, they elope together, and he runs off with her, takes her half-sister with him, and I guess she was like, well, now that we're married, you obviously want to be married, and then he was like, well, I still don't believe in monogamy, and she was like, what? And it was this really, it's a little bit sus, TV, like, I don't, she's 16, and I don't feel comfortable with the way all that went down, I guess is what I'm saying, but I still love Mary very much, and Percy, still an incredible poet. It's kind of difficult and prickly as a dude. But Ozymandias. So keep in mind, the only thing that Percy really believed in was art and the power of art. So this is a poem that gets quoted a lot. The line, "Look on my works, ye mighty in despair," gets said constantly. And this, I believe, was inspired because there was an exhibition in Britain at the time of, like, a bunch of the works that had been taken out of Egypt, like statues and sculptures, and basically stolen from the Egyptians, and they were put on display in British museums. So he saw this in the museum and got the idea for this poem. And I don't mean to dog Percy. I mean, like, again, he was an iconoclast. He was absolutely brilliant. His talent was insane. He has so many good poems. I think his relationship with Mary was a little bit odd, but we'll get into that more when we cover Mary Shelley. Ozymandias. I met a traveler from an antique land who said, "Two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. And on the pedestal these words appear, 'My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty in despair.'" Now, everything up to that point is talking about the statue out in the desert. And this is clearly, and Ozymandias, I think, is the Greek for Ramses, by the way. This is clearly an imposing person. You know, the sculpture well read those passions. He has a sneer of cold command and a wrinkled lip and frowning. It's like the king is looking down on everything else and anybody else who might be looking at his statue. And then obviously this is like a big flex here to say, "Look on my works, ye mighty in despair." But now we have a transition. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. So it's about a contrast between the words on the statue and the reality of what's around the statue. "Look on my works, ye mighty in despair." Well, what works? None of your works have survived. Your city is gone. Your laws are gone. Your people are gone. You're gone. Anything else that you did has not survived and is no longer important. The only thing in the poem that has survived is the art. It is actually the sculptor who won out, because his work that he put love and time and emotion into is what survives through time. And that very much sums up Percy's ideals on things. He doesn't believe in royals. He doesn't believe in traditional government or traditional marriage. He thinks that all of that is just a complete waste of time. He doesn't believe in any of the trappings of society that other people think are important. The only thing that is important to him and the only thing that is lasting is art. And that is what Ozymandias is here to demonstrate. That, don't look down on your artists. Don't frown on your artists. Don't sneer on your artists, because they're going to be the ones who actually have a legacy. And, who's going to remember that you went into your 9-to-5 job in your cubicle and that your profits went up 1/4? It's kind of a diss, really. But there is an episode of Breaking Bad that's kind of a climactic episode. I couldn't finish watching Breaking Bad because it's too tense for me. But it's a pretty famous episode of TV now that's named after this poem for different reasons. And you are welcome to, if you don't like what I just said, you're welcome to go, on Google and look up other people's analyses of this poem. This poem has been written about to death. But I am going to ask you a question about it in the discussion questions, as well as the question about the John Keats poem. So if you have any questions for me about either of these, about Blake, about anything that's going on, let me know. Your only job for this week is just to read over these poets and poems and then respond to the discussion questions again. Whenever we have poetry, there's not going to be a quiz. And then next week, I'll start talking to you about the test that's going to come up and what that's going to look like, but don't worry about that for now. And I apologize. Thank you to Christopher for pointing out to me that I had put the wrong due date for the last discussion question. I think what happened was my Comp 2 class, their normal due date is Tuesdays, and I had just been posting for them, and just by habit, I posted February 16th or whatever it was. So, but if I ever do that again, your due date is Mondays. I just want to make that as clear as possible. You will never have anything not due on a Monday. It will always be Mondays. So if you see me mess up again, let me know as soon as possible so that I can go in and fix it and avoid confusion. But I do apologize for that. I beat myself up for that a lot. But because of that, I will still take it today. If you did not get to participate yet in the last discussion round, you can still do that through today at 11:59 because of my mistake. So thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. And I hope that you are staying safe in kind of the freezing rain and stuff that's been happening. Hope that you all had, speaking of romantics, I hope that you had a decent Valentine's weekend. And whether you're single or with somebody that you have, somebody that you love in your life that you could show love to, even a dog. And I hope you had a good President's Day as well. So thank you for listening. Have a great day, and I will talk to you later.